4 years ago, I went on a journey to quit my well paid corporate job to spend the next few years of my life traveling full time, with the goal of not only replacing my full time income, but doubling it for doing what I loved. So here's what I wanted to prove. If I just picked up a camera and started documenting my trips, could I actually make a living from doing what I love? It's an experiment that every exceptional person wants to know. I gave myself 6 months to make a living on social media, and I tested every viral strategy that was out there, as well as working myself through a mass of useless advice. And here are all the lessons and mistakes that I've learned after the past 4 years of trial and error. And you have to know these if you want to make a living from doing what you love. So this is my exact journey broken down from how I went from corporate life to full-time travel. This story doesn't start the same way every other My Story video on YouTube starts. I didn't come from a disadvantaged background, I wasn't bullied in school, and I definitely wasn't hustling since I was 6 years old. But I was an ambitious kid. I thought I was made for great things, but that was kind of a later problem. I was just a normal kid. I lived pretty much a normal life. I went to school. I wasn't particularly good at school, but I worked hard, and then I went to study economics at university. Not because I was passionate about economics or because I even knew what economics was. I just kind of got told to study economics. I felt like that was what it was expected of me, and it was like the normal thing to do. So I was studying economics, and at that time, my life kind of just consisted of go to work, go to university, go to the gym, and then save up to travel in the summer. I would work from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning, and then I would go to university, and then I would come back, I would go to the gym. And all that time, from like start university in September and you finish university in May, and then from May till September you have time off. So that whole time I would want to go and travel, right? So I would save up all my money from working to go and travel in the summer. And that's because I was obsessed with like travel YouTubers. I would watch like Jay Alvarez and Alex Hayes and Sam Colder and all these people. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be like these guys. So I wanted to go traveling. So the first year of university, I would go to Australia. The next year I went to Hawaii, and then I went traveling around Europe. And at that time, I made YouTube videos about my travels, and I thought they were amazing, right? I thought they were amazing, and I was like, I was just praying that, like maybe one of these videos will go viral, and then I can live my dream of being a travel content creator. But nobody watched those videos, and when I look back at those videos now, I understand why nobody watched those videos. I kind of thought that like going viral was just luck, and it was a dream that I had, but I never thought I could actually achieve. So I kind of left that dream, and I would make videos for fun, but never thought it would really go anywhere. I left that dream and I kind of put it to the side, and I was like working hard at university, and I was like, you know what? My life is going to start when I leave university and I get a job. I'll have my own money, I'll have my own place, I can do what I want, I'll have more freedom, because at the end of the day, freedom is what I really wanted. So I left university and I moved country to get a job. I worked in finance in Luxembourg, and I went into that company and I was ambitious, full of energy, excited, ready to change the company and, work my way up the corporate ladder. And I was excited about it. But that energy was quickly drained about 3 months into the job when I realized that this is not what I signed up for. I can't believe that I worked all this time. You at school, at university, worked all this time for this. And it was at that point, I would start procrastinating at work. I'd be scrolling through reels and stuff, like avoiding doing the work. And, you would see all these people that I followed on Instagram, like skateboarding in the sunset. They had the friends that I wanted. They were in the places that I wanted to be, doing fun stuff. And this hit really hard because, I was in a new country, working a job that I didn't like, and I didn't have any friends. And I think at this point, this is when I realized that, throughout my whole life, I thought that I was, I thought that I was doing quite well. I was well liked. I was in great shape when I was younger. I was pretty good at sports. I was good at school. And it was at this point, I was working in a job that I didn't like. I didn't really have any friends, and I just wasn't living in line with my values, that I realized that like, I'm just a normal guy. I'm just like an average guy. And I feel like everybody, likes to believe that they're not an average guy, and they'll tell themselves stuff that's like, oh yeah, but I've got this element of my life that makes me special and different. But the reality was, I was just an average guy, and that hit my ego too hard. So I was like, right, okay, something has to change here. I was not living in line with my values at all. I would tell people, I value freedom, and I would encourage everybody that I meet to, you can go out and you can do what you want. But I wasn't living like that. I was stuck in a corporate job that I didn't like in a place I didn't want to be. So I was like, right, okay, this is a bit of a paradox here. It was a bit hypocritical of me to say, oh yeah, you can do what you want, but then I'm sitting in a corporate job not doing what I want. So I was like, something has to change. I'm scrolling on Reels. I didn't see all this travel content that was really what I wanted to be doing. So I was like, right, okay, I don't have any friends at the weekend, so might as well just go on some trips. I was only 5 hour drive from Switzerland, so I was like, right, why don't I go on a little trip to Switzerland? So every weekend I would go on a trip to Switzerland, and I would film some content, and I would come back to work on the Monday, and I would post that content on TikTok because I was too scared to post it on Instagram, because Instagram was full of all the people that, you grew up with and you went to school with. And I didn't want to, embarrass myself in front of those people. So I'd post this stuff on TikTok. And eventually, after 10 months working in this job, my TikTok started to like pick up a little bit. And I got excited. I was like, oh, this kind of broke the, you know, limiting belief that I couldn't do this travel content creator stuff. And bear in mind, I had no strategy for creating content. My content was kind of bad. So at that point, I had about 10,000 followers on TikTok. I was still working a corporate job. I had 3,000 followers on Instagram. But the reality is, anybody who'd posted more than 5 times on TikTok in like 2021 had like 10,000 followers. So it wasn't really a big deal, but I took it as a big deal. And I was like, right, I've been working at this company for 10 months. I'm just gonna go all in on this travel thing. So I decided to quit my job with my 10,000 followers on TikTok and my 3,000 followers on Instagram. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna go all in, and I'm just gonna travel for a few months and see where this thing goes. And I had to do my like notice period. So there was like 3 months notice period. So within that 3 months, I started preparing for my travels, and I was going to go on like a big road trip around Europe, go to all the Instagram spots and like create content and stuff like that. The reason I had to quit my job is because I only had like 28 days off work. And I was like, that killed me. All I wanted to do was go and travel, and if I only have 28 days off work, I was like, I cannot live like this. So I was like, right, okay, I'm done. I'm going to quit my job. So that 3 months leading up to the time where I actually left my job, I was preparing for my travels. And I literally was like, I have about 30K saved up at this point. Um, I need to make that money last, because I know I'm going to go all in on travel, but I have no idea how I'm going to make money. I mean, I thought that once I got 100,000 followers, I'd be rich, but like that's later in the story. So I didn't know how I was going to make money. I had no really social media strategy. I said, you know what? It's now or never. I'm still young. I can always go back to the corporate job, but I'm going to go all in on this. So while I was meant to be working from home, I would email I literally emailed like every single hotel in Europe, and I emailed every single car company in Europe, because I didn't have a car at the time and I needed a car to get around. So after like 1,000 emails, I'm pretty sure most of my emails landed in like a spam box. But I emailed like 1,000 companies, and you know what? A lot of them said yes, like you can come and you can stay at our hotel in exchange for content. And then a company gave me a car for 3 months, and yeah, they let me drive their car for 3 months, and that was in exchange for content. And I was like, right, okay, cool. I'm set up. That's gonna make my money last a little bit longer, and we'll see where this goes. So eventually I quit my job. I quit my job in the May, and I traveled around Europe, going to all the most incredible spots and making content. And I had nobody to go with me. The only person that was actually willing to go with me to help me film and stuff was my sister. So I brought my sister along with me, and shout out to her, because I would not be here if she had not came with me at that time. It was, and I think the real reason I wanted to do all this stuff is because, when I was sitting in that corporate job in Luxembourg and I had no friends, I just wanted to attract cooler friends. Like, if I want cooler friends, I need to go out and do cooler stuff. Why would anybody want to be friends with me if I'm just like an average guy, you know? maybe that's a bit harsh, but like that's kind of how I thought. So after like 5 months traveling around Europe, making content every day, really going hard at it, I still had 3,000 followers on Instagram. And I was like, fuck, how am I gonna fix this? So I had a lot of content though. So I just started to change my strategy. I was like, well, I've been on this trip around Europe and I've discovered all these incredible places. I've discovered basically how to have a 10 times better experience than the average tourist, how to find friends, how to save money, how to avoid the tourist traps. I was like, why don't I make kind of educational value focused content around that, helping people through what I have just done? And it was when I did that, that's when everything changed. That's when I actually started to build traction on Instagram, started going viral. My TikTok blew up. I was like, oh, okay, this is how you do it. You actually have to be valuable for people and then they will want to engage with you. I was like, okay, so this is how it works. I couldn't believe that I didn't know that before, because naturally the way most people start Instagram or social media is they do it to make themselves look cool rather than to help others. And I was like, right, once I started to try and provide value for other people, things started working. And I remember the first day that something really popped off on Instagram. I was like, no way. I just seen my phone notifications exploding. I was like, this is my chance. And I posted another time that day, and that same format of video, and that video started exploding, and I was like, right, okay, I've got it. And after 3 months, you kind of start to notice like patterns and trends, and you start to adapt your content to those patterns and trends. And once I started doing that, I started to just kind of optimize my content, and I gained 100,000 followers within like 90 days. And I was like, this is it. I've done it. I can't believe it, right? So that was just the start of the story, because once I got 100,000 followers, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be rich. But how naive was that? I had not made a penny. And my Instagram was blowing up and I had not made a penny. And it'd been about a year of creating content. And I was like, I am running out of money. Like I'm literally almost at zero. I was like, I know this is the right path, but I just don't know how to make it work. And I was in Cape Town at this time, and I met some young guys my age that were super successful. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? And I was speaking to these guys about, okay, what kind of businesses could I do? And they were like, well, what kind of lifestyle do you want? What do you want your business to do for you? I was like, well, I just kind of want to live like the way I'm living now, but be able to fund my lifestyle. And they were like, why don't you try out some digital products? And digital products are like ebooks and courses, or anything software, anything you sell online that you can build once and sell multiple times. So I got back from Cape Town and I was like, right, okay, I guess I need to try and sell something, because I thought, again, as I said, thought I was going to be rich when I got 100,000 followers. I thought brand deals were just going to flow in and money was just going to come in, but I was so naive, literally close to zero. And then I launched a travel guide of the Swiss Alps. Like I packaged the knowledge that I had gained from going on these trips into like basically an ebook. And I spent like a month creating this thing, and I was like, oh my God, I really, really hope this works, because if this doesn't work, I'm gonna have to go back to getting a job. And that was like the goal was never really to like, make lots of money doing this or whatever, but it was like, I just don't want to go back to a job. And I was like, right, okay, I pray that this works. And I launched that guide. And in the first 30 days, I did 18,000 euros in profit. And I was like, oh, so this is how it works. You build an audience and then you sell them something of value. And I was like, okay, this is how it works. And then everything started to make sense from them, because at that time, my social media accounts, like my 100,000 followers that I gained, was slowing down. And I was like, right, okay, how do I'll build this back up? And as soon as I launched the travel guides, my social media started blowing up again, because I went from being a generic travel content creator to being a resource of value for planning trips in the Alps. So my social media started to blow up, my bank account started to blow up, and I was like, this is how you do it. And then I sold those guys for a year, and then I rebranded, and I was like, right, I'm going to create a second account that's specifically designed to sell digital products. So to sell these guides. And I built a lot of knowledge on social media and how it works and how to go viral and basically how to sell products on social media. So I started that account and it grew to 40,000 followers within 8 weeks. And that account made me far more money than my original account that now has 280,000 followers ever did. Because that second account was specifically targeted for people who want to plan better trips in the Alps around Europe. So my mission statement for that second account, before I even started the account, I said, I want to help young adventurous people plan better trips in the Alps. And because my content was so tailored to that mission statement, my account blew up and the sale of my digital products just went crazy because every single piece of content spoke to a specific kind of person with a specific kind of problem. I want to target people like me who want to plan better trips in the Alps. And that was what I had knowledge on. So that account made me far more money than the original account ever did. And now I just get to live this life where I'm completely free. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. I mean, I'm literally in a chalet right now in the French Alps with a bunch of other creators who are doing the exact same thing as me. And, you just attract these crazy opportunities. I attract opportunities, friends, interest, wherever I go in the world. And I can literally do whatever I want. Like, people would say to me, like, what would you do if you won the lottery? I was like, I would literally live the exact same way as I am living now. And the whole point, the whole reason that I'm saying this is because it is literally not that hard. There was a lot of trial and error for me. I learned a lot in the process, but had I had the knowledge that I have now, I could have got to this point in like 6 months. I'm serious. And that's basically it. Like, literally anybody can do this, and it's 2025 right now. And if you are not making a career from what you really want to do, then you're playing life wrong. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to say, and I'm gonna go skiing now.